Sound check 1, 2, 3. Sound check 1, 2, 3.
Good morning. Welcome to the Planning Committee meeting for September the 9th, 2025. Just a reminder that all electronic devices are to be switched to a non-audible function during committee meetings. As we do have quorum present, I'd like to call this meeting to order. In the room with me is Councillor McMeekin, Pauls, Alex Wilson, Kassar, Beatty, Kretsch, and Maureen Wilson. Online is Councillor Nan. So let's get this party started. We have no ceremonial. How come we don't have any ceremonial activities at this event? Like at this particular committee? I just kind of want to know. Like, I kind of want some. Just 20 kilometers, no, maybe not that one. That might be another day. Anyway, let's go to the approval of the agenda. Clerk Kelsey, are there any addendum items for this agenda?
Yes, Chair Wang, the additions have been noted on the published agenda. And as well, for 8.1, the public meeting for a draft plan of subdivision for 700 Garner Road East is being deferred to a future meeting. And 9.1, demolition permit for 974/980 Upper Paradise Road is also being deferred to a future meeting as more time is required for the applicant and staff discussion.
Okay, thank you for that. Just speaking to 8.1, just read Trade Désolé. May GM Arvind Prasad, perhaps you could have, just give us a quick overview as to why that's being deferred.
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Following the previous planning committee at which this matter was heard, the applicant submitted an EIS amendment addendum report. So we've reviewed that report. However, the report does not adequately address the requirement for the to deal with the wetland issue that is on the property and also wetland compensation issues. So those matters have not been satisfactorily resolved. However, we continue to have discussions with the applicant. Also, the city and the school board have met, and staff do believe that there is a proposed resolution to the site grading condition that we have discussed previously at this committee. And the developer and the staff continue to work together to finalize a replacement draft plan of subdivision condition that is satisfactory to both the city and the applicant. So we are currently in discussions with the applicant's consultant regarding all the modeling information. We received some of that last week, so we're looking at that. So in light of this, the city is recommending the inclusion of a draft plan condition. We just have to work out the details. We continue to meet with the applicant, and I can tell you, as of yesterday, we made positive movement on this file, so we're very happy with that. But as a result of these outstanding issues, we still do need to defer the report from today's agenda.
Thank you, GM. It's unfortunate, but at the same time, we are moving forward on the 700 Gardner Road. So I would like to share with our Francophone community, we are working actively towards this. Just because I like to make a show of things, I'm excited to also see that City Lab semester and residence students are here. So welcome to Council Chambers. This is the Planning Committee. If all of these are planning committee members, so all of your counselors are very excited. If you ever want to ask any questions, please reach out. Just to give you guys a lay of the room, that side is a lot of our senior level staff. So just so that you guys know. And Randy, 9:32, man. No, I know that. Okay. All right, well, thank you so much. So are there any further amendments to this agenda? Seeing none, may I please have a mover and a seconder that the agenda be approved as amended, please? Councillor Kassar and Councillor Pauls. And I need a show of hand. Oh, wait, sorry, it's an e-scribe vote. Sorry about that, it's an e-scribe vote. Wow, Google is extra sensitive today. Okay, vote is up, please. It's loading. It's loading. It's gone, the screen has now changed, but it still says loading. Coaxing, we're coaxing. Oh, there it is, it's there. Vote is up, please. And that vote carries 9-0. Thank you. We're moving on to declarations of interest. Members of committee, Councillor Pauls, please.
Thank you. And Madam Chair, I just want to say that today at 10 o'clock, I'm going to the new Center for Helping Hands. I'm all excited. I was invited, and I'm looking forward to see the new location that they are going to be cutting the ribbon. So I'll be there.
Excellent.
Thank you.
So what you're saying, Councillor Pauls, is we should try and wrap everything up by 10 o'clock. Is that
Exactly.
what you're saying? Okay, okay, got it. Any other members of committee that have any declarations of interest? Councillor Nan, please.
Not a declaration of interest, Chair, just the Ward 3 Helping Hands organization ribbon cutting also requires my attendance as well. I'll be stepping out of committee and returning afterwards.
Cool. So nice. That's so nice. Take lots of pictures, please. All right. Thank you to both Councillor Pauls and Councillor Nan for letting us know. Let's move on to approval of minutes of previous meeting. This is from July 29th, 2025. May I please have a mover and a seconder, Councillor Beattie and Councillor Taddison, to adopt the minutes of July 29th. This is a hand vote, so may I please have your hand vote, please? And that looks like everyone. That carries. Thank you. So we are moving on to delegations. So before we begin our delegations for today, members are reminded that questions of the delegates are for clarification purposes only and not for debate. A note to our delegates, you will have 5 minutes to complete your delegation, and you'll hear a tone after the 4-minute mark, then you'll have an additional minute to finish up. Starting with 6.1, Ian Borsick is from Environment Hamilton and is virtual. Ian is virtual. Oh, there he is. Wow, look at that. Look at that background. Okay. Ian, you know the drill, so anytime you're ready, please go ahead.
No, thank you, Chair. Hello, Council. I'm Ian Borsick. I'm the Executive Director at Environment Hamilton. And before I speak to the motion I'm speaking on today, I just want to quickly state my support and solidarity with the other delegates that are speaking today, both on the Sulfur Springs Road planning application, as well as the folks who are delegating on maximum heat bylaw and maximum heat efforts taken by the city as well. However, I am speaking today on the motion being brought forward by Councillor Ted McMeekin, of which Environment Hamilton is extremely appreciative of. In 2025, we are now celebrating 20 years of the Greenbelt in Ontario. Every 10 years, because of the legislation for the Greenbelt, we undertake a review to look at how we can expand, strengthen, and protect the Greenbelt that we already have. And I'm really appreciative of Councillor McMeekin bringing forward this motion that would establish City of Hamilton moving forward with a proposal for expansion of the Greenbelt within the city. During the last 10-year review, which was 10 years ago, the City of Hamilton conducted a similar process. However, at the time, we were disappointed to see that land swaps were being proposed and the like there too. And I think over the last 10 years, and in particular in the recent history of Ontario, we've really seen that Hamiltonians love the Greenbelt. We want to protect the Greenbelt that we have already. And we appreciate that that legislation that was passed 20 years ago was not a be-all to end-all. It was the first step that was taken. And every 10 years, we have an opportunity to evaluate what we need. And in Ontario, what we need is our natural space and farmland to be protected. We are losing hundreds of hectares of farmland every single day in Ontario. We are seeing massive ecosystem loss and biodiversity loss across this province. And the Greenbelt has effectively protected areas that need to be expanded. Just because this was established 20 years ago doesn't mean that we can't fiddle with it or do what we want with it now. And I think it's really clear, particularly from how many written delegations were submitted on a potential Greenbelt development, it's really clear that Hamiltonians want to expand the Greenbelt. We have so much that isn't in the Greenbelt in Hamilton that could be further protected, and directing staff to evaluate, look at what areas could be made as additions to that, and then submitted to the province for this provincial review. So then that way we can see how it can be expanded. Other municipalities are going to be undertaking similar efforts. We've already seen delegations from former premiers to local municipalities on this effort. And we're also going to be seeing other municipalities moving forward with their own similar processes. And in areas where that isn't going to be undertaken, we're already seeing people organizing, putting pressure on their local elected leaders to protect and expand the Greenbelt. I really encourage all Hamilton councillors to engage with this review when it gets underway. But ultimately, before then, until we get to that point, what we need to do is our due diligence as the City of Hamilton, ensure that we have a good proposal that we can move forward with, and we can consult with the public, and we can bring this forward, and we can really show to the province and to the Premier that Hamiltonians want to expand the Greenbelt, we want to protect it, and we know how to do it. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I'm very pleased by this, and I'm looking forward to seeing council vote in favor of this motion going forward.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
delegation, Ian. Speakers list is open. Okay, seeing none. Thank you so much. You're welcome to log
Thank you,
off and
committee.
watch us on YouTube. Thank you. We are now moving on to 6.2. These are delegations respecting the amendments of property standards bylaw respecting the air conditioning appliances. This is in respect to item 9.3. Up now is Jacqueline Wilson, who is virtual, followed by Brad Evoy, also virtual. So Jacqueline Wilson, please. Are you able to turn on your camera?
Yes, thank you very much.
Perfect, thank you. Anytime you're ready.
Okay, thank you. My name is Jacqueline Wilson, and I'm a lawyer with the Canadian Environmental Law Association. We're a specialty legal aid clinic with a province-wide mandate, and we focus on environmental justice, equity, and health. Tenants in Hamilton have suffered through another very hot and dangerous summer. Heat is especially dangerous for young children, for seniors, for people with certain disabilities and mobility issues, or people taking certain medications that can inhibit their body's ability to cope with heat. People who are socially isolated and people who live in inadequate housing that isn't mechanically cooled are also at risk. After 619 people died in British Columbia in an extreme heat event in 2021, the BC coroner found that 98% of those people died indoors. 90% of those people were over 60 years old, and more than 60% of the people who died had seen a medical professional within a month prior to their death. Climate change is not only an environmental crisis, although it is an environmental crisis, but it's also a public health and equity crisis. Heat is only predicted to get worse in Hamilton in terms of how frequently there will be extreme heat days, but also how long heat waves will last and how hot it will get. It's such an unfair situation. Renters and regular people who aren't responsible for climate change, and regular people and renters are not getting the profits and the benefits from continued burning of fossil fuels, but they're bearing a disproportionate burden of the outcomes of climate change and the health risks. The proposal before the committee in item 9.3 is to establish that a good state of repair for air conditioners means that air conditioning that is supplied already by landlords must be maintained to meet a 26 degrees Celsius indoors standard. And for apartments with portable units or units in one room, that standard would only apply inside the room where they're located. We do recommend passing this bylaw as it provides support for a remedy for tenants with broken air conditioners provided by their landlord. However, we are very concerned by the delays in implementing a full maximum temperature bylaw of 26 degrees Celsius in all rental units in Hamilton. When the BC coroner studied the 2021 extreme heat event, it was dedicated to the families, friends, and communities of those who lost their lives from the impact of the extreme heat event. And it said, "May their memories endure in our actions to prevent similar deaths in the future." Let's do that. Let's heed that warning. We can't wait for more deaths and more suffering to act. The Planning Committee first passed a motion to address dangerous indoor temperatures in rental units in May 2023. Tenants without air conditioning have now been exposed to 3 more summers without relief or safe indoor environments. It is extremely urgent that we move forward with a bylaw that would apply to all rental units and set a standard of 26 degrees indoors, especially those units that are not currently cooled. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jacqueline, for your delegation. Speakers list is open. I don't see any questions from committee, so thank you so much for your delegation. You're welcome to log off and watch on YouTube. Up now is Brad Evoy. He is virtual, and on deck is going to be Carl Andrus, who is in person. So Brad, if you're able to, perfect. Anytime you're ready, Brad.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, councillors. I just want to say really briefly, I'm not going to reiterate some of the stats from the previous speaker, but I do want to make clear several things. I think that at Disability Justice Network of Ontario, we would echo that the measures in this report are very important. It's a positive step forward. But as with the previous speaker, we'd want to reiterate that a maximum temperature bylaw of 26 degrees is an incredible next step that this council must take to, move forward this issue and ensure that, overall safety and heat stress for tenants, and particular disabled tenants in this community, is moved forward with in a good way. The reality is that increasing heat stress through climate change is an incredible impact on disabled members of our community across the city, across this province, and beyond. The reality is that, when folks looked at some of that BC data that were mentioned earlier, many of those were seniors and other folks with disabilities. The reality is that, the impacts on disabled communities, the intensifying of some of our own experiences, and further disablement experienced through heat stress and possibly heat death due to increased heat impacts is something that we need to address urgently and promptly in this city. The reality is that, like our previous speaker had mentioned, the city has had reports and opportunities to do that previously. This report should be seen as a stepping stone to move us in the right direction. The reality is that we don't have clear data in Ontario still on some of these issues, as the Ontario coroner does not collect proper heat data and heat death data, as the legal clinic system has pointed out previously. And, we are in a position where the city could take a leadership role to ensure that, all folks are protected and properly protected against heat death and heat stress as tenants in this community. Ultimately, when we look at these issues, whether it's an issue in a workplace or an issue at home, we have to ensure that further death and disablement is prevented where we can. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your delegation, Brad. Speakers list is open. Thank you very much, Brad. Doesn't look like anybody is on the speakers list, so you're welcome to log off and watch the rest of this on YouTube. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Up now is Carl Andrus, he's in person, and on deck will be Pauline Roberts, also in person. So Carl, come on down. You're the next lucky contestant on the Planning Committee agenda. Anytime you're ready, Carl.
Good morning. I am, once again, Carl Andrus, the Executive Director of the Hamilton Community Benefits Network. I'm here to talk about the staff report and bylaw before you on maximum heat. Sometimes delegating feels like the 1993 movie Groundhog Day. I try and remind myself that I'm not that old, but unfortunately, here we are revisiting an issue that should have been solved years ago. Before you is the staff report on the recommended bylaw. Looks great. Staff summary of the history of this issue. Unfortunately, it excludes some facts. For example, as mentioned, in British Columbia in 2021, a heat dome event killed 619 people. Another event led to 16 recorded deaths the year later. In Ontario, we do not record, as mentioned, heat-related deaths. The staff report doesn't review your own climate science report prepared by ICLEI Canada, which shows Hamilton is expected to suffer extreme heat days and tropical nights. Somehow staff forgot this climate report that shows the number of days where the daily maximum temperature will exceed 30, 32, and 34 degrees. and is going to increase to an average of 64 days a year. The time to do something is now. Things are going to get worse, not better. The staff recommended bylaw does not seem to have reviewed the available facts, nor your own studies and data. Does the staff report mention a 2020 McMaster study on the perceptions of extreme heat and cooling centers in downtown Hamilton? No. If it did, that report might talk about the urban heat islands and human health. It is worth noting that the air temperature at the core of the city is warmer than the surrounding rural areas. The heat island effect occurs when large natural areas are replaced by man-made surfaces that absorb solar radiation and increase the associated temperature with a significant impact on the health and welfare of urban residents. I live downtown. I do not have the luxury of trees and green spaces. I am fortunate to have air conditioning, window units I pay for myself, including the associated hydro costs, which have to be installed in windows not designed for them. I have lived in places where the landlord has fought against my right to cool myself, none of which is addressed by the bylaw before you. Going forward, there will be many extreme heat days. Days that will prove deadly to some of our residents in this city. You have a choice now to prevent those deaths, passing a maximum heat bylaw that puts the costs and duty of care on landlords who profit from providing housing. It's a for-profit business, and as a municipality, you are in the business of licensing and regulating for-profit enterprises. In the name of common good, this council has passed a number of seismic shaping regulations on for-profit businesses. You should not just hope that those who don't provide air conditioning will casually support their residents with cooling spaces and assume residents can access the meager city-provided cooling stations. So I implore you, as our municipal leaders, why are you considering a watered-down bylaw approach that only extends cooling to those who already have it? An enforcement regime that barely helps anyone, motivated perhaps only by media coverage of Dundas tenants who had air conditioning but didn't receive it. What about everyone else? A 2021 census counted 76,400 rental households in Hamilton, but that number is on the increase as home ownership becomes a challenge for younger generations. Perhaps today, right now, you have a chance to change policy and leave a lasting legacy that will impact generations of renters. I think back to previous councillors who had the foresight to pass a bylaw on maximum heat in winter. Back then, it was commonly understood that people should not freeze to death in their homes. Now, it is incumbent on you as our representatives to make sure people don't fry. Choose as lawmakers to keep people not just from freezing to death in their homes, but dying of extreme heat. Thank you.
Thank you for your delegation, Carl. Speakers list is open. Seeing as there are no speakers, thank you so much, Carl, for your delegation. Pauline Roberts, come on down, please. On deck will be Kayla Leet, who is in person. Thanks, Pauline, for being here. Anytime you're ready.
Good morning, City Councilor and staff. My name is Pauline Roberts. I'm the Secretary for Downtown Acorn. I'm talking today because I live in an apartment, has different temperatures. I have a slumlord, so I need you guys' help to change this because we need air conditioning. I have asthma, bronchial asthma, so going outside in the heat, I either get sunstroke, sunburn, or I have an asthma attack. So people with lung issues or heart issue, it's very hard for us to be outside. And when your apartment is hot and you don't have enough air conditioning or fans, or you can't afford them, you're dying inside your apartments. So Acorn support this bill, but we need some changes. We can't wait till next summer to have these in plants. We need it done before summer because it's going to get hotter every year. I grew up in Manitoba. This is the heat that we get in Manitoba. But we have some relief. Here we do not have any relief. So I really would like the city councilors to really support this bill. And Acorn will stand with you guys on this because we cannot have people dying we don't have the numbers. And I could tell you for myself, I was in the hospital 4 times this summer because of it. And I have an air conditioner in my room, and I have 4 fans, and it still did not help. So while we're doing some good things, we need to do some more good things. And I support the city councilors and the city staff, and Acorn really 100% stand with this project. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pauline.
Yeah.
Speakers list is open. There are no questions. Thank you
you.
so much, Pauline. Up now is Kayla Leach. Kayla? Come on down, Kayla. And on deck will be Claire Freeman, and she is virtual. So, Mr. Appleton, if you're able to turn off your camera, that would be great. Just because we're trying to ensure that delegates don't need to turn on their cameras. Kayla, anytime you're ready.
Okay. Good morning, Council. My name is Kaylee, and I'm a tenant in Ward 4 and the East End Acorn Board Chair. I'm delegating today in support of the staff recommendation to strengthen Hamilton's property standards to protect tenants from extreme heat where landlords provide cooling. In my case, my building unfortunately won't benefit because my landlord only provides heating. I was featured in the Hamilton Spectator for how I managed to keep me and my pets cool this summer, similar to how Victorians kept their housing temperature regulated with tin ceilings. I used tin foil on my windows to reflect some of the heat from the sun back out. Next summer, I'd like to have some cooling solutions for me and my cats that are newer than 200 years old. My neighbors and I can organize and bring to light our ridiculous housing situation, but if our target is unashamed to put profits over people, the next step is pushing for laws to enforce them to do their jobs. My story is not unique. Acorn's survey of Hamilton tenants from 2022 found 70% of respondents reported to being impacted by extreme heat in their home. When it comes to safe temperatures, we see that landlords are still more concerned with their bottom line than whether their tenants can live in their homes safely. Thanks to the city, I have a cooling kit which has the thermometer. On extreme heat days in the summer, it was measured 32 with the tinfoil on the windows and 34 without them. Lastly, I wanted to encourage councillors to read the 2 letters submitted today from tenant unions in the city that have AC included in their lease, but dealt with broken units all summer. To wrap up, again, Acorn supports the staff's recommendation today, but urges the city to move forward for next summer with the max heat bylaw so that all Hamilton tenants can be protected. This is about climate justice. This is about building safety, and this is about putting a stop to the ridiculous and irresponsible neglect corporate landlords subject tenants to every single day. Thank you all for listening.
Thanks so much for your delegation, Kayla. Speakers list is open. No questions. Thank you so much, Kayla. Up now is Claire Freeman. Claire is virtual, but I don't see her on the list. Okay. All right. So I'm going to say that since Claire is not available, we'll just continue on. What I had failed to do was ask for a hand vote to receive Ian Borsick in 6.1. So I'll ask Councillor Alex Wilson and Councillor McMeekin to move and second to receive that delegation and refer it for consideration for item 10.1. This is a hand vote. May I have your hand vote, please? That looks like everyone. Thank you. Now, may I have a mover and a seconder to receive all of the delegations in 6.2 and have them referred to item 9.3. Councillor Alex Wilson, Councillor McMeekin. And this is also a hand vote. May I have your hand vote, please? That looks like everyone, and that carries. Thank you. So we are on to public hearings. The public has been advised on how to pre-register to be a delegate at public meetings on today's agenda. If a person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of council, City of Hamilton, to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Hamilton before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Hamilton before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. So let's start with 8.2 because 8.1 has been deferred to a future meeting. 8.2 is PED 25234, the official plan amendment to expand the urban boundary to include 159 and 163 Sulfur Springs Road in Ward 12. Committee, we do have Dave Hayworth available to give a presentation. Do we want to see the presentation or waive the presentation? We would like to see the presentation. So Dave, come on down. So City Lab, we're seeing a staff presentation currently on 159 and 163 Sulfur Springs Road. Just, here's my commentary running forward.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of committee, city staff, and members of the public. I'm Dave Hayworth, a Director and Senior Advisor of Strategic Growth Initiatives. I'll be presenting the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment applications for 159 and 163 Sulfur Springs Road. The presentation will provide a brief history of provincial and municipal policy development as it pertains to urban boundary expansions, a brief overview of expansion applications received by the city to date, and a summary of the Sulfur Springs applications. This slide shows a key policy decision timeline relative to urban boundary expansions, which this committee and council are well aware of, including past provincial decisions which have resulted in lands being added to the urban area through the approval of the city's official plans, and then the same lands being removed through Bill 150. Committee and council are aware that the city has since established the urban boundary expansion framework to deal with applications permitted by the new provincial planning statement outside of a municipal comprehensive review. As of today, the city has received 4 expansion applications, including the White Church, Elfrida, and 20 Road West, and Sulfur Springs lands, which is subject of today's meeting, as well as 2 related secondary plan applications pertaining to White Church and 20 Road West. The White Church and Elfrida expansion applications were denied by council in June 2025, and thereafter appealed to the Ontario Land Tribunal with no hearing date scheduled as of yet. The 20 Road West expansion applications remains under appeal and is scheduled for an April 2026 hearing. The Sulfur Springs applications were submitted in December 2024, deemed incomplete by staff in January 2025, and appealed to the Ontario Land Tribunal in March. The tribunal deemed the subject applications complete on May 26, requiring the city to process them. It is important to note that in general, once an application is deemed complete, council has 120 days to make a decision, which in the case of the subject applications would be September 23rd. The subject lands are approximately 10 hectares in size, with 0.2 hectares currently within the urban boundary. Mizrahi Developments, hope I pronounced that correctly, has submitted applications to remove approximately 6 hectares of the subject lands from the mapping and policies of the Rural Hamilton Official Plan and to include them in the Urban Hamilton Official Plan, thereby expanding the city's urban boundary. Approximately 3.7 hectares of the subject lands located to the north of the site would remain in their natural state as open space. The applicant has proposed a condominium development of 75 low-density residential units on these lands, including 61 block townhouses, 14 single detached homes, as well as parks, open spaces, and service areas. The subject lands are located in the former town of Ancaster, with frontage on the north side of Sulfur Springs Road between Wilson Road to the east and Lover's Land to the west. The site is roughly 180 80 meters wide and 800 meters long at its longest extents. The lands currently contain 2 detached dwellings, a large man-made pond at the north, a smaller man-made pond at the south, and a private trail network through the northern portion of the site. The surrounding lands are primarily comprised of natural heritage features and residential uses. To the north of the site lies a portion of the Dundas Valley Conservation Area, including recreation trails and other natural features. To the direct east are natural heritage areas, and further east is downtown Old Ancaster. Lands to the west include residential estate lots, and to the south of the site there are several low-density residential lots interspersed with wooded areas. The effect of the subject applications would be to redesignate portions of the site from rural and open space designations within the rural official plan to neighborhoods, low-density residential and open space designations within the urban Hamilton official plan. The proposal also seeks to rezone portions of the site from conservation, hazard land, and agriculture to low-density residential, small lot, and open space. There are no changes proposed to the zoning or designation for the block of lands to the north end of the site. As noted previously, the subject lands are located within the Greenbelt Plan and Niagara Escarpment Plan. The lands shown in orange on the slide are designated Escarpment Protection Area, while those in green are designated Escarpment Natural Area. The Escarpment Natural Area includes the most sensitive natural and scenic resources of the escarpment, while the lands designated Escarpment Protection Area include landforms and natural features that have been significantly modified by land use activities such as agriculture or residential development, and may include lands needed to buffer escarpment natural areas and natural areas of regional significance. Both designations are intended to protect and enhance these natural areas and do not permit any urban uses. Consequently, the proposed development would require a redesignation under the Niagara Escarpment Plan, which can only occur during a 10-year review of the plan. At this time, it is uncertain when this review is anticipated to begin. A preliminary concept plan has been provided by the applicant to demonstrate a potential layout for development. The applicant proposes to retain and enhance the natural trail system and man-made ponds on the north end of the site, and to retain the existing dwelling at 159 Sulfur Springs Road. An additional 13 single detached dwellings are proposed adjacent to the existing dwelling, as shown in yellow, with open spaces and landscaped areas surrounding these dwellings. 61 block townhouses are proposed for the south portion of the subject lands, as shown in orange, with the additional open spaces and landscaped areas provided. With regards to public consultation, a notice of complete application and public meeting was published in the Hamilton Spectator on June 7th and mailed to property owners within 400 meters. Staff also held an open house attended by about 55 participants. Staff received approximately 160 comments across all consultation methods, 2 of which expressed support of the applications, focusing on the need for increased housing supply in opposition to the strict protection of the Greenbelt Plan area. The remaining comments opposed the applications, with concerns primarily focused on the loss of ecosystem services, disregard for the protection of the Greenbelt Plan and Niagara Escarpment Plan, and a lack of focus on affordability. In support of their applications, the proponents submitted 10 technical studies along with the draft official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment, planning rationale report, justification report, and concept plan. These submissions were circulated widely, with feedback received from 15 internal divisions and 8 external commenting agencies, as well as representatives of 6 nations of the Grand River and Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Staff's review of the submitted materials sought to test the applications against relevant provincial municipal policy, including key policies of the provincial planning statement, Niagara Escarpment Plan and Greenbelt Plan, the city's rural and urban Hamilton official plans, and applicable zoning bylaws. Staff recommendation report provides a thorough evaluation of the applications in relationship to these policies. The major concerns are identified on the slide here. Urban development not permitted in the escarpment plan conflicts with council's firm urban boundary strategy. There are other areas in the city to accommodate this form of development. Infrastructure capacity has not been demonstrated, and there's really no fiscal demonstration. There are some additional concerns relative to analysis on intensification targets, the completeness of the environmental impact study, the structure of the draft amendments. The application does not align with the UHOP principles, 10 directions. The cultural heritage impact assessment staff felt was not adequate, and community services have not been addressed, especially relative to parks, as we can see. So our recommendations are we do not, because it does not conform to the Greenbelt Plan and Escarpment Plan and the PPS, in our opinion, we are not recommending approval of the applications. The next steps quickly is that if council were to actually, planning committee or council decided to want to approve the application, we would recommend just approving it in principle, holding that, and not approving a formal bylaw adopting an official plan until the Niagara Escarpment Plan would have gone through an amendment. Thank you for your time, and I'm willing to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Speakers list is open. Councillor Kassar, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Dave, for the presentation. Very clear. It's not a good application, doesn't fit with many policies. I just wanted to ask one clarification for the public record around why staff have brought this application to this point. I think there's been some misunderstanding in the public. Why would city staff even spend time on this when it doesn't support any of the policies, and then bring it here to planning to make a decision? So I know the answer to that, but I just wanted to give you an opportunity to express that on the public record.
Yes, that's a good, through the chair to the councillor, that's a good question. As I mentioned, once it's deemed complete, we have 120 days to process. That's for planning committee and council to make a decision on the application, or let's say they didn't make a decision on the application. Normally, an application can be appealed if the applicant, let's say the application were denied, the applicant doesn't agree, they could appeal that decision, or a non-decision that within that 120 days, right? In this case, it's staff's opinion, and that's in the report, that because it's in the Greenbelt Plan, the applicant should not be able to appeal any decision or non-decision, but that would have to be determined if the applicant could try to appeal it, and that would be determined at the OLT. The OLT would make the ruling as to whether that appeal would stand or not.
Thank you for that. And just to add on a little bit of color, from my understanding, staff are professionals, are bound by provincial legislation, and when an application comes in that is deemed complete, in this case by the OLT, they have no choice but to fulfill their professional obligations and do the review. And hence, that's why they spent all this time on it and have brought it here, just so the public understands that the city staff are required to do that because they are professionals and follow professional standards and legislation. So I just wanted that clarified. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kassar. Up now is Councillor Alex Wilson, followed by Councillor McMeekin. Councillor Wilson, please.
Thank you. Two quick questions from me. Are you able to just quickly go over the financial viability analysis and the results of that? So what did we look at, and like top line, what did we find in just a bit more detail?
Through the chair to the councillor, we didn't do that analysis. The financial impact assessment was not submitted with the application.
It's not submitted.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then my other question is similar to Councillor Kassar, one of just kind of procedure. Sometimes when application is in the NEC, the rural area, and the Greenbelt, we say we're going to let the NEC decide whether this is an appropriate use first, and other times we go first. Could you just explain why on this file we feel comfortable, despite the fact that the NEC hasn't heard this, saying, nope, this is our stance on this file in front of us? Is it just because of where the applicant applied that we're happening? Or is there a decision being made, and can you just help me understand that decision?
Yeah. Through the chair to the councillor, an application was made. As Councillor Kassar spoke, we have a timeline to process the application. So that's one element. The other element is our recommendation. Part of the reason for recommending denial is that it does not comply with the Niagara Escarpment Plan. While the applicant has made an application to amend that plan, which they can do, those applications are considered by the Niagara Escarpment Commission during their 10-year review, which they haven't initiated yet. That could be coming up, but they'll initiate that, and then likely they would be asking for the city's opinion and comments on any changes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Just for our City Lab folks, NEC is the Niagara Escarpment Commission. UHOP is the Urban Hamilton Official Plan. RHOP is the Rural Hamilton Official Plan, just so that you guys are understanding some of the acronyms. On to Councillor McMeekin, please.
And UHOP is what you're experiencing here today. Thanks very much, Dave. I just want to begin by saying it's really incredible, building on what Councillor Kassar was saying, the kinds of things that our planning staff are required to do. That isn't necessarily good or bad, but it's an observation that also needs to continually be made, because the rules are rapidly changing. And from my perspective, and I was up much of the night reading every one of those letters that came in. Not just my perspective or our perspective. The broad base of Hamiltonians concur that those kinds of changes and insistences around those changes, David, are not always as particularly helpful as some would like them to be, including me. So thank you for that. I wonder if you could just, by way of the only query I have, you mentioned, I think, unless I missed it in passing, the public input, and you quoted some figures about those that were expressing favorably to the project and those that were not. Can you just recall for us again? I'm not sure I heard it correctly, what those numbers were.
Through the chair to the councillor, if I recall correctly, I think we've received about 160 comments.
160?
Yeah, through the open house or people emailing, through the process, basically. I think there were 2 in favor, and I think that was based on, thinking the Greenbelt plan is too protective and that it's providing housing, or the main reasons, I believe. And other concerns against the application, or concerns relative to the application, were that, environmental concerns, protection of the Greenbelt and the Niagara Escarpment Plan, urban sprawl type of situation.
Madam Chair, I'm old school. That's all I need to hear. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Seeing as there are no other speakers, may I have a mover and a seconder to receive the staff presentation, please? Councillor Kassar, Councillor Alex Wilson. This is a hand vote, so may I have your hand vote, please? Looks like everyone. That carries. Thank you. Up now, we do have Rochelle LaRoque from Biglieri, who is in attendance. Rochelle, can you come on down?
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of council. My name is Rochelle Larocque. I'm a registered professional planner and partner with the Biglieri Group. I'm here on behalf of my clients, the Numbered Company and Mizrahi Developments. Just to provide a brief agenda for today, I'll be going through the site, the purpose intent of the applications, the proposed elevations, and then some more technical information regarding the servicing, traffic, environment, archaeology, and cultural heritage, planning, as well as the additional studies. So as reviewed by Mr. Hayworth, the site is on the north side of Sulfur Springs Road. It is west of the intersection with Mansfield Drive and east of Lovers Lane. The site's approximately 10 hectares and currently has 2 single detached dwellings, as well as accessory structures, swimming pool, and a tennis court. Both properties are accessed via a shared driveway onto Sulfur Springs Road. So the proposal is to redevelop the more southern half of the property with 61 townhouse dwellings and 14 single detached dwellings. One of the existing dwellings on site will be remaining. The man-made pond at the north of the property that is connected to the Dundas Valley Conservation Area will be maintained and is not proposed to be brought into the urban boundary. Based on further discussions with the clients, there is consideration that should this be approved, that those lands will be dedicated to the HCA to be included as part of the Dundas Valley Conservation Area, as there are informal trails which do connect this to the larger conservation area. Blocks for private amenity areas, visitor parking, and a private sanitary pumping station will also be created through this plan of condominium. So as identified, applications for official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment have been made to request an expansion to the city's urban boundary of about 6.29 hectares. Requests have also been made to the Niagara Escarpment Commission to change the designation to Escarpment Urban Area. These are some of the proposed elevations for the townhouses that have been proposed by the client. High level of articulation reflecting the historic nature of the community of Ancaster. So for some more details regarding the servicing, all of the servicing on the site will be private, as it will be owned by the condominium corporation. Water, sanitary, and stormwater would be provided. Municipal water and sanitary lines do run in front of the property currently, and stormwater will be managed on the site through 2 underground storage tanks, which will treat the water for quality and quantity. To provide a bit more detail on the water system, there's an existing 200 millimeter water main which dead ends right in front of the property. According to the owners, one of the properties currently is on municipal water and sewer. The other one's currently on septic and well. So our proposal would be to, highlighted in the lighter blue color, is to extend the existing 200 millimeter water main to connect with the existing 200 millimeter water main and 150 millimeter water main at the corner of Mansfield Drive and Sulfur Springs Road. If this was not to be supported by the city, a pumping station that would be privately owned by the condominium corporation would be required to meet required water pressure flows as well as water flows for firefighting purposes. There's an existing municipally owned 375 millimeter sanitary sewer, which currently runs in front of the property. And as I previously identified, one of the existing houses is connected to that sewer system. A private sanitary pumping station would be required, excuse me, at the north of the site to meet required sanitary pumping pressure to the municipal system. Can I keep going? Thank you. Our engineering consultants are continuing to work with city staff to review and receive additional information regarding the servicing levels in this area. Stormwater would be managed to control the following measures: quality, quantity, erosion control, and water balance. 2 underground tanks would be constructed, as well as lids, which would encourage inflow and infiltration of stormwater. An oil and grit separator would also be included as part of the stormwater system to treat water before being released. A traffic impact assessment was included. One single full move access is proposed to the site. Based on the analysis, it's forecasted to generate approximately 38 and 49 two-way trips during the weekday AM and PM peak hours. No upgrades were required to Sulfur Springs Road to accommodate the proposed development. However, it is recommended that some trimming of the trees within the city's right-of-way be completed to improve sightlines. Comments from the city staff have identified that upgrades are not required to accommodate this development, and that if upgrades are required, it would be to the traffic signal timing at the intersection of Sulfur Springs Road and Wilson. As part of this application, knowing that there is no parking available on Sulfur Springs, each unit is proposed to have a minimum of 2 parking spaces, and 31 visitor spaces are proposed throughout the site. As part of the natural environment investigations that have been completed as part of the application and the ongoing investigations, additional field studies have been undertaken over the past year. These studies include bat habitat, breeding amphibian, basking turtle, bat acoustics, breeding birds, and headwater drainage features. And the headwater drainage feature investigation was done in conjunction with the fluvial morphological investigations. No species at risk were identified on the site. However, bat acoustical monitoring is still being undertaken and reviewed. There is encroachment into a portion of the significant woodland on the site. However, a comprehensive and robust compensation plan will be prepared to provide for replacement of the trees, as well as part of the on-site investigation. Area of invasive species were identified, and part of the plan will be to replacement plant in these areas with native species. Where encroachment into the required buffer to the significant woodlot to the east is proposed, enhanced planting of the residential yards is being proposed. This will be maintained by the condominium corporation. The cold water stream that runs along the northwest portion of the property will be protected with a 30-meter setback. And the proposed development maintains a minimum of a 30-meter setback to the Mount Mary wetland complex located to the east, which is within the city's urban boundary. This is a non-provincially significant wetland, and hydrologic inputs to the wetland will be maintained. The Stage 1 and Stage 2 archaeological investigation were completed. No archaeological materials were identified or found during the study. As part of the cultural heritage review of the property, it's been informally identified within the city's inventory of heritage properties. The property is not included in the city's municipal heritage register or designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and therefore has no formal heritage recognition. As such, the city no longer has an ability to designate the property since the application has been deemed complete. But further to that, based on our historic research, the original dwelling on the property was likely a worker's cottage for farm laborers and was constructed in approximately 1850 and had been associated with the Brockton or Springfield Manor located at 211 Sulfur Springs Drive, which is currently inventoried. This property, the house that has been identified on the property and is going to be removed as part of this application has undergone significant modifications and changes, and therefore any of the historic merit associated with this building has been removed. And the purpose that we are here today is because applications have been made to redesignate a portion of the property as neighborhoods and open space in the City of Hamilton's urban official plan. The front portion of the property is currently within the city's urban boundary, and the application is to expand it further to include all approximately 6 hectares of development area. Application for zoning bylaw amendment was also submitted, which identifies a number of modifications that will be required. Amendments to the Niagara Escarpment Plan have also been made, and we do recognize the comments and interpretations that staff have made regarding the Greenbelt application. We do disagree with those and have a different interpretation. 4 additional studies were included as well: a fluvial geomorphology assessment and erosion hazard control delineation, which undertook to examine the limits of development to ensure that the tributaries of Sulphur Creek, which run through the property, are protected, as well as identify appropriate meander belt widths and setbacks to these areas. A karst analysis was undertaken. There's one small area of the property that has been identified as potential karst area. Both looking at the physiological features on the site, borehole data, Ontario Geological Survey database, MECP database, as well as well records, natural heritage, hydrology, source protection and environmental instruments, as well as Hamilton Conservation Authority and City of Hamilton data. Based on the review of this information, there are no karst features and no karst present on the property. An agricultural impact assessment was completed as well. Based on the Canada Land Institute mapping, this property is identified as being 5T, 6T, and 2W. Both 5T and 6T soil types have severe limitations on the type of agricultural opportunities for the property. 2W does have minimal restrictions to the type of agriculture that can be accommodated on the site. However, the subclass W speaks to wet or not appropriate land to allow for cash cropping or farming opportunities. With respect to livestock operations, those would also not be permitted on the property, as there is a double distance setback as it's adjacent to the city's urban boundary. The geotechnical and hydrological investigation completed 11 boreholes of the property. Of them, 8 were completed as groundwatering monitoring wells. The area is impacted by shallow groundwater in some areas of the site, which will require consideration in the built form at time of construction. The recommendation is that lids be implemented to maintain pre to post infiltration levels. And that's my presentation, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Rochelle. And just on the record, are you in support of the staff recommendation?
I'm not in support of the staff recommendation, although I do recognize the work and the consultation that staff has undertaken and appreciate the comments that they have provided. However, I do disagree with their recommendation and their assessment.
Okay, thank you very much. Elsie Kelsey, you okay there? Okay. Okay. So we do have a speakers list. Councillor Maureen Wilson, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I'm just trying to identify some of just the starting point here. You're a professional planner and your services have been secured by the principals. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Chair, that's correct.
And thank you. And through the chair, which firm is it that you work for?
Through you, Madam Chair, I have been retained by Mizrahi Developments and the numbered company.
Your planning firm, sorry. What is the name of your planning firm through the chair?
Through you, Madam Chair, I work for the Biglieri Group.
Okay. And where is that, may I ask, through the chair, headquartered?
Through you, Madam Chair, we have an office in downtown Hamilton as well as Toronto.
Okay, thank you. And would you be able to identify the principals? Who is or what is 2691715 Ontario Limited? Through the chair.
Through you, Madam Chair, that is the numbered corporation that owns the property.
Yes, thank you, I got that. Who is that? Through the chair.
Through you, Madam Chair, I recognize your interest. However, I'm not sure how this pertains to the planning matter on the floor. And without permission from my clients, I'm not at liberty to provide their names.
Thank you.
Any other speakers for this particular delegation? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much, Rochelle, for your delegation. At this time, may I have a mover and a seconder to receive the delegation from the agent, please? Councillor McMeekin and Councillor Alex Wilson. This is a hand vote. May I please have your hand vote, please? That looks like everyone. Councillor Beattie just walked in, so he just participated in that one. All right, so now we are on to registered delegations. We do have two, so I thought I saw Mr. Peter Appleton is online with us. So Mr. Appleton, could you turn on your camera and you are welcome to give your delegation. You have 5 minutes, please.
Great, thank you very much, Madam Chair.
There you are, great,
Okay.
fantastic.
Excellent, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the Planning Committee and their submission and for the updates to so far. Thanks to Ian Borsuck for his great delegation earlier on the Greenbelt Amendment Plan. And I really wanted to not go down the usual route with this, but more of a cautionary tale, and the reasons are quite obvious here. When you have, let's just be honest, no environmental impact study of note, no cultural assessment of note, no Indigenous consultation of note, this is a test, straight up, right? The landowners here who don't want to identify themselves. And hiring a planning corporation to speak on their behalf. They want to test and push to see if they can crush the Greenbelt, to see if they can crush the Niagara Escarpment Commission with the powers that be, with Mr. Ford's current political regime and using things like Bill 5. I think it's extremely important that we are obviously using the law to reject their development proposal. And I just heard from the representative of Biglieri there that, quote unquote, the developer disagrees with the planning committee's assessment. So they disagree with the law. So they're here to do everything they can to amend and change the laws that are here to protect biodiversity and climate change. The laws that are here to protect our urban and long-standing boundaries. So we set up these boundaries. We had wonderful consultations, and the council here has protected these boundaries for a long time. And this is not the first, it's not the last. As spoken to earlier, we had 5 other proposals going on at the same time. This one being by far the most bold, pushing directly into the side of the conservation area. Ponds that are of significance. The fact that, honestly, I laughed out loud listening to that fact that they could not, quote unquote, find a single species at risk. Are you kidding me? We've gone through all the lands around there for years and found up to a dozen species of risk within meters of that property line. So we know what this is about. I want to just be very, very open about this. Unfortunately, Hamilton, as we pointed out, and I'm glad that Kassar made this very clear, you know, the city's doing their professional duty to respond to this planning. Our professional duty should be to financially ask for the compensation for this development proposal, which is 100% they knew would be rejected. There's no question whatsoever, because it's obvious that they are looking to amend the laws. They want to change or break the laws to get what they want through. So why should we not be asking for financial compensation for wasting the resources that are here? And a green belt review is coming, like Ian brought up, and they want that to be front and center, right? And they know that when the Niagara Escarpment comes up, they're looking to see the exact same thing happen. So I wanted to just say thank you to the councillors, and thank you to everybody here for holding your line. Thank you for using the rule of law with the Niagara Escarpment Commission and the Niagara Escarpment Plan, and with the Greenbelt Plan, and with our urban boundary, which we are going to resolutely keep where it is, and we are going to use not just the law, but we're going to use the power of what the people are doing. 160 comments, and 3 of them were for this development, and we probably all know who the 3 were that were planted there to do that. So thank you again. I want to say that my time is up, and if there's any questions, I would be happy to take them. Just for background, I'm a professional engineer with an environmental engineering degree and also conservation biology degree. So believe me, I looked at these plans quite in depth.
Thank you very much for your delegation, Peter. Speakers list is open, so if there's any questions for this delegate. Councillor Maureen Wilson, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the delegate. I believe the delegate made reference to known species or species at risk. And I was wondering if he would expand on that reference and or that knowledge. Thank you.
Absolutely. When I was working with the former Greenbelt threat, we were also working alongside the Hamilton Conservation Authority lands there in many different regions. This was one of the areas that we were helping to do the natural heritage inventory list. And I was doing myself there, bad acoustic tests, also in there with, I won't give his last name, but Paul, and if people who know Paul is a very well-known and respected botanist, looking at floral, both ground and height. So we were able to find butternut species there as well. I'm also a butternut identification certified species analyzer, so we were able to find those as well. And we also found evidence of 2 other types of turtle habitat, which were snapping turtle and are also species at risk as well. So hopefully that helps. I can also give you very specifics on the exact locations as well as we GIS map them all.
Well, thank you to the delegate through the chair. And yes, I'm familiar with the reference to Paul and his credentials, which are formally recognized. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing as there are no other speakers on the speakers list, thank you so much, Peter, for your delegation. You're welcome to log off and watch the rest of this on YouTube. Up now is Nancy McKeel. Nancy is a pre-recorded delegation, so anytime you're ready.
The applicant. I believe the Planning Committee has no option other than to deny the application. The applicant is seeking an amendment that would designate the land low-density residential. This designation would not only permit single detached dwellings, which is an existing use today, it would also permit semi-detached, duplex, triplex, fourplex and street townhouse dwellings, which are not currently permitted. As we know, the applicant is in fact seeking to build townhouses as part of the development. While the NEP permits single dwellings for land designated escarpment protection area, it does not permit other dwelling types, such as duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, and townhouses, for such land. We also know the land is indeed designated escarpment protection area. While Bill 185 and related changes to the Planning Act mandate the city must receive and evaluate applications for urban boundary expansion, the Niagara Escarpment Planning and Development Act takes precedence for land within the Niagara Escarpment Planning Area. NEPDA states that, despite any other act, no municipality shall undertake any development or undertaking in the NEP area if the undertaking is in conflict with the Niagara Escarpment Plan, and no municipality shall pass a bylaw for any purpose if it is in conflict with the Niagara Escarpment Plan. Passing a bylaw that would permit townhouses on this land conflicts with the NEP. Given this, the application must be denied.
All right, thank you for that very succinct video, Nancy McKeel. As this is a public hearing, and we are asking now, are there any members of the public that wish to speak at this public hearing? Are there any members of the public that wish to speak at this public hearing? And for a third time, are there any members of the public that wish to speak at this public hearing? Seeing none, may I please have a mover and a seconder that 1, public submissions were received and considered by committee, and 2, that the public meeting is closed. Councillor Cassar, Councillor McMeekin. This is an e-scribe vote, so may I have your vote electronically, please?
Let's make your dream a reality right now.
I would love to make my dream a reality. The vote is up, please. That was a good way to get it going, you know? The dream of the reality of the vote is. And my dream reality says that this carried 8-0. Thank you all. So now at this time, may I please have a mover and a seconder to approve the report recommendations? And just a reminder, the approval of this report is actually to deny the application. So just Councillor Cassar, Councillor McMeekin, any discussion on said report? Councillor Cassar, please.
Yeah, just some brief comments. We've had 95 plus people email in support of the staff recommendation to keep the area in the Greenbelt outside the urban boundary. We've heard from delegations. This council in the past has held a firm urban boundary. The previous council did that. We've also been very clear about maintaining the integrity of the Greenbelt, and in fact, our colleague chair has a motion later today to actually bolster or look at bolstering the Greenbelt and growing it. So I find it quite troubling that we have a city council and city staff that are entrusted to run the city, to grow the city, to manage the city in an orderly fashion, and to build a healthy place to live. And we have individual landowners who want to do something different. And yes, I understand that that's enabled by provincial legislation. However, I find it disrespectful for applications to come in like this and to completely do the opposite of what we're trying to do here. So I've been very clear to everyone that's emailed me and in public and social media that we have made a stance on how we need to grow the city. Not just a want, a need to grow in an orderly way that is financially sustainable, that's healthy, where people can move around and people can have opportunity, and it does not involve incursions into the rural area, taking down natural areas in the Greenbelt, in the Niagara Escarpment Plan. I mean, this application misses the mark on every aspect. So obviously I will not be supporting the application and have moved to support the staff denial. And I hope the rest of my colleagues will as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kassar. Up now is Councillor Maureen Wilson, please.
Thank you. Through the chair to the general manager of planning and economic development, I asked the representative of the principals to identify 2691715 Ontario Limited, and an answer was not given. And I'm wondering, do we have any knowledge on who this principal or who this numbered company is, through the chair?
Manager or Director Hayworth, please.
Through the chair to the councillor, no, we do not.
If I could ask then to staff, is there any capacity for the public to identify who the numbered company is? Through any way or means, if someone was interested in the interest of transparency?
Through the chair to the councillor, I imagine there's a way. I'm not to do a search to find out who it is. I don't think under the applications for an OP or zoning, we can specifically get that for plan a condominium, which the applicant made originally an application for plan a condominium. We can require that, I believe, but they deferred that application, so.
Interesting, thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Seeing as there are no other speakers, I do have a mover and a seconder, so may I have your vote electronically, please? Again, a vote of yes is to approve the recommendations, again, to deny the application, or a vote of no is to counter that. Vote is up. Vote carries 8-0. Thank you. Let's move on to 8.3. This is PED 24135A, which is the self-storage facilities review and draft amendment to the Rural Hamilton Official Plan and draft amendment to the zoning bylaw number 05200. We do have Lucas Moscato Carbona that's available for presentation. Should committee, yes, committee would like to see that. Lucas, come on down, please.
Good morning, Chair, councillors, the public, and staff. I'm Lucas Moscato Carboni, a planner here with the Zoning Bylaw Reform Team in the Planning and Economic Development Department. We are here today to present Report PED 24-135A, including the draft official plan and zoning bylaw amendments, along with the findings of our public survey and staff recommendations. I'll begin by just providing a quick brush up on the evolution of the self-storage facilities, the growing demand in newer formats, which I covered at the September 6, 2024 Planning Committee meeting when the self-storage facilities report was presented. And I'll get into what has occurred since that meeting in a few slides, but here's some background information again. Traditionally, self-storage facilities have been designed with convenient direct vehicular access to individual units, allowing patrons to park in front and load and unload items easily. They commonly consisted of rows of single-story linear buildings with access from one or both sides through large overhead doors separated by drive aisles. These premises are usually enclosed by fencing and secured by gated entry. These facilities usually include an office and administrative building for business operations of the facility and for accessory purchases like moving supplies. These facilities often require minimal servicing, but occupy significant tracts of land and resemble warehouses. For these reasons, they have typically been in industrial or in arterial commercial areas. The self-storage industry has experienced changes in response to shifting demands. Increased remote work, downsizing, family transitions, apartment living, and small business needs have led to a surge in demand for storage facilities. As a result, self-storage companies are adopting modern designs and multi-story structures, along with offering extra services. Newer facilities provide diverse unit sizes and incorporate features such as indoor drive-in bays, 24/7 secure access, and various auxiliary services like parcel reception, document management, boardroom spaces, and even retail stores. The evolving nature of self-storage has led to outdated policy and zoning regulations, necessitating zoning amendments to accommodate the changing built form and additional services provided. At the September 6, 2024 Planning Committee meeting, the committee received the self-storage facilities review. Staff were directed to carry out public and stakeholder consultation and to report back in 2025 with a summary of feedback and any proposed zoning amendments. Committee discussions also asked staff to explore several policy options, including how self-storage could be integrated into mixed-use urban developments, how permissions might be applied in rural settlement areas, and how demand and usage trends could guide zoning permissions. Since that direction, staff have engaged internal stakeholders, drafted preliminary guidelines for expanded permissions, and launched an Engage page with a public survey to gather broader input. Just to kind of go a little bit back here, the MHBC report, which we consulted on, was presented to Planning Committee on September 6, and it contained several key components. It included a review of the current location of self-storage facilities in Hamilton, an overview of the evolution of self-storage as a land use, examples of how municipalities across Ontario had implemented zoning regulations on a site-by-site basis, and a review of Hamilton's own policy framework and zoning permissions. The report also provided a number of recommendations for updates to permissions in Zoning Bylaw 05200, and these included options for a new or modified definition of a self-storage facility, permitting the use in certain commercial and mixed-use zones, downtown zones, and transit-oriented corridor zones, allowing greater flexibility in the placement of facilities within buildings, including ground floor or street-facing locations, and preserving permissions for traditional self-storage facilities in industrial zones. Following that presentation, staff engaged in public outreach on this content, and the MHBC report recommended that staff take proposals under consideration and conduct further evaluations to inform the development of updated regulations. To support the review, a dedicated Engage Hamilton project page was launched on March 20th. The page provided accessible information about the study and included an in-depth survey that ran until April 20th. The survey invited residents and stakeholders to share how they currently use self-storage and what features they consider important for the future. We received a total of 203 responses, with a majority submitted following a presentation to the Development Industry Liaison Group on April 14th. That presentation provided an overview of the project and served as an opportunity for industry representatives to offer comments and feedback. The survey began with introductory questions to understand respondents' relationships with self-storage. This included whether they had ever rented a unit, if they currently use one, what they store, such as personal items, seasonal goods, recreational equipment, or business items, what size unit best reflects their needs, and how often they access it. Results show high familiarity, with 80% having rented a unit in the past and 65% currently using one. Most store seasonal items, recreational gear, and personal belongings, typically in small to mid-sized units, such as a large shed or a garage. Units are most often accessed monthly or seasonally, highlighting their role in meeting long-term or occasional storage needs. As a part of the survey, users were introduced to 3 different models of self-storage that reflect the evolving industry. The first was the urban adaptive reuse model, of which Hamilton already has a few examples. Participants were asked if they could see themselves using this type of facility, either now or in the future, with yes, no, or unsure as the response options. They were then asked which features they would value most, such as secure access, smaller unit sizes, adaptive reuse of a unique building, proximity to transit, street-level loading bays, and moving supplies, with another category to suggest additional amenities. Finally, respondents ranked their likely method of access, choosing from car, transit, walking, or cycling. Results show that 25% of respondents said yes to using this type of facility. The top features identified were secure access, a variety of smaller unit sizes, proximity to transit, street-level loading bays, and walkable locations. Car remained the main mode of transportation choice, followed by walking and then transit. Overall, the findings suggest that adaptive reuse is a valued urban option when paired with strong security and convenient transit and walkability-friendly design. For the second model, the urban standalone self-storage facility, respondents were asked the same questions as before, with an added focus on where loading and unloading bays should be located. This helped assess how these facilities could function while still supporting an active pedestrian frontage. Options included placing bays along the street, out of view, or suggesting another approach. Overall, 26% of respondents said yes to standalone facilities, making this the most widely supported format. The top features were a secure access, a variety of small to mid-sized unit sizes, and convenient street access loading bays. Car use remained the dominant transportation choice, with walking and transit ranked similarly. For the third model, the urban mixed-use building, respondents were asked the same preference and feature questions. They were also asked how important it was that a facility be integrated with retail, office, or residential uses, and whether the presence of those uses would influence their decisions to rent a unit. Overall, 24% said yes to mixed-use facilities as a potential option. The top features were controlled access, a variety of unit sizes, and integration with other uses like retail or housing. Car access remained the main transportation choice, followed by transit. The key insight is that while mixed use was not the leading preference, it holds value in dense walkable settings where convenience, integration with services, and proximity to transit or neighborhoods can add appeal. Let's move forward to recommendations. In response to the committee direction on September 6, 2024, and feedback from the self-storage survey, staff working closely with policy planning have developed a rule framework to guide proposals in rural settlement areas. The focus is on limited circumstances, particularly sites transitioning from non-conforming rural industrial uses, with direction shaped by the rural Hamilton official plan's priority to protect agriculture while allowing limited rural-oriented development. The framework requires that sites transition from a legally established rural industrial use, that facilities serve local needs and fit the rural character, that agriculture not be impacted, and that proposals proceed through a zoning bylaw amendment and site plan control process. Facilities would only be permitted within rural settlement areas and prohibited elsewhere. Staff will also assess whether limited transitional opportunities exist on certain industrial sites outside settlement areas. We are taking this framework to the Agricultural and Rural Affairs Subcommittee alongside policy planning, and any recommendations from this committee, together with feedback from the Advisory Committee, will be incorporated into the official plan and zoning bylaw amendments. These amendments are intended to be brought back to Planning Committee early next year. To reflect the evolving nature of self-storage, staff are proposing a new definition that will distinguish the use from traditional warehousing. The new standalone definition of self-storage facility being introduced to zoning bylaw number 05200 will be defined as the use of a building or part of a building for the storage of goods in individual units for a fee. This new definition will help support integration in appropriate commercial and mixed-use zones. It's important to note, however, that the existing warehouse definition will continue to apply in industrial zones because no amendments are proposed because of the ongoing employment lands review. Staff are recommending that self-storage facilities be permitted in 3 zones: the mixed-use medium-density C5 zone, the district commercial C6 zone, and the arterial commercial C7 zone. While the consultant's report considered a broader range, including downtown and transit-oriented corridor zones, staff are proposing a more focused approach. This balances the evolving needs with preserving the intended function and character of each zone, while allowing the city to monitor outcomes and adjust through the employment lands review. In the C5 and C6 zones, ground floor storage is limited to access, loading, utilities, and accessory retail or office. Where active street frontage applies, self-storage may occupy no more than half of the ground floor facade, and on larger, multiple building sites, up to 40% of the interior buildings may be storage. Drive-up access is prohibited, and no direct access from the front lot line to parking or loading is allowed. In the C7 zone, no new regulations are proposed given its role in accommodating larger format auto-oriented commercial uses, and existing standards would continue with the warehouse definition updated to remove references to mini storage facility as a temporary step pending the employment lands review. Our next steps include staff will continue to collect input from today's public meeting and the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Subcommittee later this month. A final official plan and zoning bylaw amendments will be brought to Council in early 2026. And our proposed rural self-storage facility policy direction is to be endorsed in principle and further refined through the Rural Hamilton official plan review. In conclusion, staff acknowledge that as the city continues to unlock housing solutions and broaden the range of housing choices for residents, there will be a corresponding rise in both demand and interest for accessible storage options. The key priority, however, is to ensure that this demand is addressed through a clear and balanced regulatory framework. By advancing our proposed approach and embedding self-storage permissions within the city's official plan and zoning, we are creating a made-in-Hamilton approach that will manage where and how these facilities are located, ensuring compatibility with surrounding uses, protection of agricultural lands, and alignment with broader planning objectives. This concludes my presentation, and I will be pleased to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Lucas, for your presentation. Speakers list is open. Any questions for our staff person? It was very fulsome. No questions. Thank you, Lucas. All right, at this time, may I please have a mover and a seconder to receive the staff presentation, please? Councillor Taddison, Councillor Alex Wilson. This is a hand vote. May I have your hand vote, please? Looks like everyone. Bye, City Lab. See you guys later. At this time, are there any members of the public that wish to speak at this public meeting? Are there any members of public that wish to speak at this public meeting? And for a third time, are there any members of public that wish to speak at this public meeting? Seeing none, may I please have a mover and a seconder that 1, public submissions were received and considered by committee, and 2, that the public meeting be closed. Councillor Alex Wilson and Councillor Taddison? Yes. This is an e-scribe vote, so may I have your vote electronically, please? Vote is up. And that vote carries 9-0. Thank you. Now at this time, may I please have a mover and a seconder to approve the report recommendations, Councillor Alex Wilson and Councillor Kassar. Any comments, questions? Councillor Taddison, please.
I have questions for staff and then some comments.
Okay.
In this report, I just want to say before I speak, I have a totally biased rural perspective here, and so I apologize for my singularity and focus. I'm trying to understand some of the efforts put in on this report and the conclusions that were drawn from the survey. So it says in the report, over 1/4 of all survey respondents reported living in Hamilton's rural area, with rural participation increasing significantly in the final weeks. When asked about proximity, 2/3 of all respondents said it was important to have self-storage facilities available outside of the urban area. So I'm trying to understand, does staff interpret those findings to mean rural residents want storage facilities inside their rural settlement area, which means right in town or inside their village? Is that the interpretation?
Through the chair to the councillor, we recognized and staff acknowledged overall that there was an interest within the broader rural area for self-storage uses, and we considered multiple placements and zones in which would be the most fitting in order to serve community needs and also to support our broader policy planning goals of protecting sensitive land areas and prime agricultural uses. So as a result, it seems as if the best approach would be to put them within rural settlement areas. However, we are open to assessing if there are other plots of land or lots which are transitioning from maybe more of a rural industrial use and seeing if those can be potentially hold permissions for self-storage facilities as well.
And following along those lines, I do recognize that it says that you are further evaluating for some limited opportunities where self-storage use may be considered as traditional use on lands outside the rural. Okay, so I recognize that. But right now, today, if this passes and is ratified, self-storage facilities are only that will be prohibited from locating within rural areas of the city outside of rural settlement areas. And for me, I think this is missing the mark, because from my perspective, we have rural, commercial, industrial work sites along major highways and roads in our rural areas that are isolated. That means they're close to residential areas, but they're outside of the residential areas. And these would be great sites for rural storage facilities, such as Regional Road 56 in Glanbrook, Highway 6 South in Mount Hope, Highway 6 North, Carlisle, Freelton areas, Governor's Road, Highways 5 and 8 out to Flamborough. That these have historically, they've been industrial and commercial areas, sometimes 4 or 5 acres at a time. These are viable sites on these corridors. They're not a threat to agricultural lands, and they haven't been considered yet. And so for me, I'm trying to understand from my rural perspective that I bring here, why were these locations not the primary focus of this report initially, and rather, why are they being put off to down the road?
Through the chair to the councillor, staff acknowledged the broad interest across the rural area, and we did evaluate multiple sites and areas in which to place self-storage facilities. If this document were to be accepted at face value today with the policies that we've brought forth, I think staff acknowledged that we would be comfortable with that and pursuing a limited approach with options to expand on a site-by-site basis.
Okay, so it's on okay, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, through the chair to the councillor, Emily, co-manager of zoning and committee of adjustment. I just do want to clarify that this is step 1 of a 2-step process. So today is just consultation. So we've been taking feedback and whatnot, and which will inform the final version of the zoning for these self-storage facilities, which will be brought forward early next year.
Okay, so then my feedback is that I'd really like this considered along those areas. Thank you very much. My comments are that I appreciate the work that staff has done, and I really wanted to emphasize that fact that there are many locations that do not that fit all those conditions, but they're outside the rural settlement areas. From my perspective, I don't see people that live in a town or a village wanting storage inside the rural area. The people I speak to, it's perfect, say, on the road leading into town, but not in town. Nobody, well, I shouldn't say nobody, because I'll say most people that I've spoken to have clearly identified to me that they want that storage outside of town on those isolated areas that are, former garages, former work sites, former industrial companies or whatever that have that are on the brink of shutting down at this point, and this would be a great opportunity to use those in the rural areas. So thank you very much, and I will end there.
Thank you. Up now is Councillor Alex Wilson, please.
On the exact same issue as Councillor Tedison, but a slightly different perspective, just to say I really appreciate the kind of the narrow perspective of staff while also then allowing for the site-specific conversations, because I think that we also don't want our communities to be overwhelmed with applications. I think it is something that needs to be right-sized to the need of a growing community, and so actually really appreciating the careful walking with this, so we're not kind of running into it, allowing rural uses as opposed to, I think earlier drafts were considering not at all, like this doesn't. So I think there's a real recognition that there is a use in the rural community. How do we find the areas where it's going to have the least impact? Here are the areas that get a blanket potentially okay. We have to look at this application. And then other areas aren't necessarily a definite no because of their zoning, but it's going to be a more careful process. But I will agree with Councillor Tedison. I think I'll speak for Flamborough, along provincial highways is a good higher order roads. That's maybe where those exceptions might exist. But we are also, just given the last conversation, almost always talking about greenbelt lands as well. And so even though these might be formal industrial sites, they're also greenbelt zoned. And so I really appreciate the lens of agricultural protection, the recognition that this is a need in the rural community, and not the black and white approach of saying yes here, not there, but a really site-specific approach of saying here's where it's going to have the least impact. We're going to have an easier path forward. Here are the areas where it could have more of an impact. We're going to take a more careful approach, more site-specific. So I appreciate this is going out for consultation on maybe where those lines get drawn gets changed, but just a slightly different perspective on the same topic. Really appreciate where we landed on the rural zoning.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Seeing as there are no other speakers, Councillor McMeekin, please.
Thanks, Chair. I want to just weigh in and indicate that I agree with the perspective of the last two speakers. And it needs to be handled with sensitivity, because occasionally someone will come along with a proposal to plant something in the greenbelt or on agricultural lands, which would not be appropriate. More often than not, it's highway and such post-industrial use. I didn't catch the whole presentation, but I did catch, I think, a passing reference to your meeting with the Agricultural Advisory Committee. That's very appropriate. And I think what I was going to suggest is, as you move forward with phase 2, to ensure that you speak with those around the horseshoe who have a particular responsibility. We all have a responsibility, but a particular responsibility to respond to the rural farm side of our great beloved city. And a good way to start there would be with that committee. So I appreciate that reference and look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McMeekin. Seeing as there are no other speakers, we do have a mover and a seconder. May I have your vote electronically, please? Vote is up. That vote carries 9-0. Thank you, committee. Let's move on to items for consideration. This is 9.1 has been deferred. 9.2 is PED 25199, demolition permit 693, Highway 8 in Stony Creek in Ward 10. May I have a mover and a seconder to approve the recommendations in this report, which is actually to approve the demolition permit? Councillor Beattie, Councillor Tadison. Any discussion on 9.2? Councillor Beattie, please.
Thank you. There's been a number of these that have come forward, and I'm actually pleased to see the staff recommendation is to allow the demolition of the building in this case. For alliteration for committee's benefit, although it does make reference in the report that there's no formal application on the site, it is tied in with Block 1, which will be coming before this body in October for finalization and ratification, hopefully. So while there may not be a fine point on the development application at this point, there are broader objectives for development that are taking place. And I would note that the property adjacent was once home to the Fruitland Motel, and the two of them kind of went in tandem. For whatever reason, the motel was permitted to be demolished. This is just a companion piece that would see a building that has not been occupied in some time. I remember knocking on the door and finding no one there during the 2022 election. So seeing that the structural integrity has been confirmed to be compromised, it's only appropriate that this blight is removed, and happy to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers to 9.2? Seeing none, we do have a mover and a seconder. May I have your vote electronically, please? Vote is up. Vote carries 9-0. Thank you. We are now moving on to 9.3. This is PED 25212, amendment to the property standards bylaw respecting air conditioning appliances. May I have a mover and a seconder to approve the recommendations in the report and receive the written submissions, please? Councillor Kretsch and Councillor Kassar. Discussions on 9.3, please. Councillor Kretsch, please.
Thanks very much. I'm grateful this is here, though late. I was the one to move this with you, Councillor Huang, back in 2023. And the current general manager wasn't here at the time when this came forward. I'm not sure it's fair to ask him, but I'm going to anyway, because if he can say, sorry, I don't know, or, I can ask somebody else who might have been here. I do think the public deserves some kind of explanation as to why this took so long. So this was approved by council in 2023 to be directed to have this bylaw in place already. And so frankly, the way the timing worked and should have worked is by this past summer, the bylaw should have been in place. So that's my first question. My second question is, if I understand this correctly, we're going to have something back here. The consultation will be done between now and before next summer. There'll be consultation done and there'll be a bylaw before us before next summer. Can you confirm that? So those two questions, please.
Yes, thank you through the chair. To the councillor, yes. In terms of why this took so long, I have to be honest with you. I've looked at the previous reports and so forth. It just seems to be one of those things that didn't get priority, and it probably should have, and we're giving it priority right now. So we are actually looking forward to getting this approved today. And yes, definitely 100% we'll be coming back with that bylaw before the heat hits next summer.
Thanks very much. I only had one other question about this. I did a lot of media on this when it first came out and talked to cities, frankly, from Canada, the United States, other places, about how they had similar bylaws they were working on or similar kinds of plans they were working on. And there was some discussion about picking a value or a number of 26 degrees. I don't think there's a debate about whether or not that's the right number. You saw delegates delegate on that. Other cities like Mississauga have it down somewhere in theirs. When you convert it to Fahrenheit in the States, it gets pretty close. But I'm just wondering if any staffer in the room could speak to why we came up with 26 and what kind of research we did. Because I know there were some differences. Some others had 25, some had 28. So why we landed at 26? Was that just the majority, or?
Yes, thank you for that question. That's actually an excellent question, Councillor, through the chair. We do have Dan Smith. He's online, and he can speak to that.
Good morning. Dan Smith. I'm the Acting Director of Licensing and Bylaw Services. Through the chair to the councillor, yes. So the number 26 degrees was used as we felt it was a number that best represented the best practices across the municipalities that we had looked at. And that also included some legislation that the province had also put forward for readings, and that's why we landed on that number.
Thanks, Dan. Just a couple comments from me. I do think it's really important when council sets a priority that we follow that priority. This also happened in the last term of council, beginning of this term of council, with the renovictions bylaw. In fact, exactly the same thing happened, where we instructed folks to put together a new Westminster-style renovictions bylaw. It didn't happen, and then at the end of the day, no one could explain why. And so this is now the second time with a bylaw impacting renters where there's been a delay. So I'm just saying, for the public record and for anyone listening, we really have to make sure that if we prioritize these things, we have excellent reasons why we're deferring taking action. Because as you heard from delegates, and I hear all the time from the 80% of people who live in Ward 2 who are renters, this has been a brutal summer for them. And having had some protections, especially in situations where air conditioning already exists and is in disrepair, would have been huge. This is a big deal. So I'm glad we're doing this. I think it's an important step that we're taking action, especially where places where there's already existing air conditioners, and we're just setting a number, right? This should have been something we did a long time ago. Look forward to seeing the adequate temperature bylaw come back before next summer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kretsch. Up now is Councillor Alex Wilson, please.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, a couple of questions to Director Smith on just some of the implementation pieces. So one of them would be, what is the expectation of receiving a property standards complaint? So assuming the bylaw is approved, we have this in place, it's all done, we've done our consultation, it's now next summer, we have a bylaw in place, and someone says, hey, my unit's 30 degrees Celsius, I'm supposed to have AC, there's a landlord in violation, there's a property owner in violation. Can you walk us through from the reporting process to any orders issued to restoration? What does that actually look like? Like by having this bylaw in place, what can the city now do?
Thank you, Councillor, and through the chair. So yeah, our first step will be to ensure that we have the appropriate policies in place in order to deal with the change in the amending bylaw. So once we do that, it will follow a very similar process that we use for all of our property standards investigations. A complaint would come in, an officer would go and investigate to determine first if the individual is to have air conditioning provided by their landlord. So we'd be asking to see copies of their lease to make sure that we can confirm that. We would then ask to see if the air conditioner can be operated in a state of good repair. We would also have heat or temperature measuring devices that we currently already have for our heat enforcement. We would do measurements in the specific areas of the unit in which the air conditioner, if it is portable, is stationed, or central in any habitable room. We would make a determination there. If it is not suitable or outside of the guidelines of the bylaw, we would issue orders to have the unit repaired and to provide heat to that maximum temperature of 26 degrees. We would follow the same process with our other property standards orders that we have in place. The individual who receives an order would have an opportunity to appeal that order. However, if they do not, we would be able to carry out the work ourselves through our city contractors, which have already been procured and have awareness of HVAC processes. And then the cost of having that work done would be placed back on the property owner's tax roll. And if there was non-compliance, obviously we could also issue charges to the individual that was non-compliance.
Thank you. I really appreciate that through the chair. So someone has an issue, they reach out to MLE Property Standards, there's an on-site investigation, there's a check of the lease to confirm if this is an included service and therefore eligible under the bylaw, temperature check is done. If there is a violation found, I just would like some more clarity on what the order process looks like and particularly the timelines associated with that. So if a landlord or a property owner does not appeal, for example, and the city just goes in and fixes it, what does that timeline look like? And if the landlord does appeal, what timelines or due process is introduced? Because I think a lot of this has been framed in urgency from the delegates, and I think I'll agree with everyone this is an important step forward, but I also really want to just understand, like, what is the tool that we're putting forward to set expectations clearly? Like, if a landlord does appeal this process, how long can that take to resolve, and what's happening in that unit while that's under appeal?
Through the chair to the councillor. So the process an officer will go through in determining how long an order needs to be issued and when they're expecting compliance will be based on the investigation that they do. Property standards bylaw requires us to issue an order for a minimum of 14 days. If it is ultimately served through registered mail, that goes to 19 days. The individual who receives that order has that same amount of time in order to appeal their order. If they don't wish to appeal that order, then we would have an expectation that the air conditioning unit be repaired at the expiration of that order. We would be able to issue charges as soon as that order has expired and there is not compliance there. We would also be able to have our contractor be on site to determine the cause of the malfunctioning air conditioner and then put a plan in place in order to repair or replace that air conditioner. It's hard to say how long that will take because each individual case may be separate and individual depending on the malfunction with that air conditioner. However, we would expect it to happen as quickly as possible to have that air conditioner replaced. If they appeal the order, an appeal process will extend the timeline for the repair to happen. The appeal will need to be heard by the Property Standards Committee, and the Property Standards Committee ultimately will hold the authority on when and if that air conditioner needs to be replaced, repaired, and when that needs to happen. So it certainly will extend it, but it's hard to determine what those timelines will look like based on the fact that the committee is the one that sets them.
Thank you. And just seeking confirmation, though, that the city can't assume that the order won't be appealed. So as much as it's difficult to set maybe a maximum timeline, there's a minimum timeline, it sounds like, of 28-ish days. Is that correct, before the city can take action? So we have to wait 2 weeks is the shortest amount of time for the applicant or the owner to receive our order, assuming an inspection can occur the day the complaint comes in, and then they have 14 days to respond to that. And so we have 28 days there where we're not able to enforce the order, issue mechanical repairs. Obviously, we're hoping there's the threat of the order, there's the threat of fines if things aren't resolved. But I'm just trying to understand that, is that 28-day window accurate as a minimum amount of time from the investigation and confirmation there's an issue from an MLE officer to actioning, or am I missing a step in the middle there?
Through the chair, good question for clarification. Yeah, so there is some clarification I can provide there. So regardless how long an officer issues an order for, whether the order is issued for a 14-day minimum period, whether the officer determines that it could be most expected to have it repaired within 30 days, the property owner still only has 14 days to appeal. And that's 14 days from the date the order is issued, not from when they necessarily would have received it after that time frame. So it's not the full 28 days. It is only a 14-day appeal period, regardless how long the order is issued.
Thank you. Through the chair, that exhausts all my questions. I really appreciate that clarity. If I could be added as a second-time speaker just for comments, I really appreciate that clarification of that.
Thank you. Up now is Councillor Maureen Wilson, please.
Thank you to the chair. Thank you to my colleague, Councillor Alex Wilson, in getting us sight on this process and this timeline. I'm not as well versed as my colleague, but I'm just trying to understand that the due process requires us to allow for the 14-day window, considering the potential health impact of this matter. Through the chair.
Through the chair to the councillor, yes. So the property standards bylaw is created through the Building Code Act, and this legislates that any property standards bylaw that is in place within the province requires an opportunity for a recipient of an order to be able to appeal, and that appeal, they must provide 14 days in order for them to review to determine if they wish to appeal.
Okay, thank you. And just a comment from me, not to pile on. I'm glad there was an expression that this was deemed collectively, I think, to be a priority. It's very regretful that we are here. I appreciate the acting director and all the staff members of getting it here now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maureen Wilson. Any other first-time speakers before we go to second-time speakers? Seeing none, Councillor Wilson, please.
Thank you. I just want to talk a little bit about what this means given the urgency that everyone's framed this issue as. I think as we're figuring out as a city how to step in, keep people safe, protect public health and safety, we also need to acknowledge the limitations that we have in entering these spaces, and whether it's we need provincial legislation to follow, because I think it speaks to how we're trying to close gaps that aren't really in the core municipal mandate. You know, residential tenancies is kind of shared between provincial, municipal, and oftentimes broken down that way. And that lack of jurisdictional clarity means that we're only using municipal processes to try and clarify this. Those municipal processes have their own timelines associated. And so we're in a period where this is an important step forward legislation-wise. There's further important steps forward legislation-wise that have been highlighted. We should definitely take them. But I want to acknowledge that that gap that exists means that in the meantime, residents experiencing extreme heat may not be able to seek a resolution within that extreme heat event to that AC. It means that we need the types of responses today and tomorrow that involve community members looking out for each other, getting folks to cooling centers, checking in on each other, that type of work. We just don't have the regime nor the resources to ensure safety, I think, without the community keeping each other safe as well. And I think it's also important to acknowledge that, given everyone else has said the urgency of this issue, these are such important steps forward. But if we can get your AC fixed in, 2 weeks to longer, depending on the process, depending on how this follows, I think it's important for folks to realize that that may help in the next heat event, that may help in the future, and over time there's going to be compliance with the bylaw. But there's not necessarily in a heat emergency an ability to get people that safety through this bylaw. This is more of a long-term successive fix. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that I still think it's an important step forward, but there's lots of work still needed to be done to keep residents safe in the hot weather. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Seeing as there are no other speakers, we do already have a mover and a seconder. May I have your vote electronically, please? Vote is up. That vote carries 10-0. Thank you, committee. Let's move on to 9.4, which is the HMHC 25-009 Hamilton Municipal Heritage Committee minutes dated August 22nd. May I please have a mover and a seconder to receive the minutes and approve the recommendations therein? Councillor Alex Wilson and Councillor Kretsch? Yes, okay. Any discussion on 9.4, please? Councillor Alex Wilson, please.
Just another thanks. It feels like every time we receive these minutes, I get to say thank you to the committee and the staff for all the hard work. Yet another really important building in Dundas being recommended or having their intention to designate. So this is, continuing a very successful pattern of recommendations and moving forward. And so just ongoing appreciation for this work. I just got my haircut in the post office last week. And I know lots of folks are really, really excited about, protecting the building for the long term. I don't think there's a current risk or anything, but people are really excited about that long-term protection that comes with the notice to designate. And so thank you to the committee and staff for their ongoing hard work.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Seeing as there are no other speakers, may I have your vote electronically, please? Vote is up. Alyssa, you're off the hook now. That vote carries 11-0. Thank you. Let's move on to 9.5, which is the outstanding business list. We do have items to be removed, including 23BB, which is the battery energy storage proposal, 25B, which is the Committee of Adjustment Decisions Review, 24H, which is the appeal of Committee of Adjustment Decisions respecting 14 Belvedere. At this time, may I please have a mover and a seconder to approve the changes to the outstanding business list? Councillor Beatty and Councillor Kretsch says no, so I'm going to take that as a seconder. Thank you. Any discussion on item 9.5? Seeing none, may I have your vote electronically, please? And the vote is up. I am now taking no scratches as a seconding thing. That carries 11-0. Thank you. We are now moving on to motions. 10.1 is the Greenbelt Review. Councillor McMeekin, will you please introduce your motion and your seconder, please?
Yes, thanks very much, Madam Chair. First things first, this isn't my motion, although it is moved by me and seconded by Councillor Kazar. It was drafted by Environment Hamilton. I appreciate working with stakeholders as enlightened as Environment Hamilton. And I think I made a couple of minor changes and an amendment to the be it resolved, the Part B where it says see staff be directed to prepare and report back. I've added ideally in advance of the provincial government's launching of the review, and then the rest of the sentence follows based on some advice from our senior planning team. So I lead with that. Interestingly, just, there's an old saying about the shoe fitting. A twist on that, if the shoe fits, find another one just like it. And I think that's what Environment Hamilton did. They recognized that the food belt was a good motion, but they thought it should be supplemented by a direct appeal to the province around launching the study. I come at this with some passion. In what now seems like a lifetime ago, I had the privilege of working with the Honorable John Garretson. He and I together presented the original Greenbelt Plan, which put in place the largest protected green space, legislated green space in the world. And we certainly have, related to that, other blessings. For example, I don't know if people know this, but our boreal forest in Canada is 7 times the size of the Amazon. We have access to 21% of the world's fresh water, and we have enough of the best, most arable lands to not only feed ourselves, but properly manage to be the world's food basket. That's what this is all about. 10 years ago, the then Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing recruited the Honorable David Crombie to work on a review. It was an integrated review, comprehensive, consolidated, looked at the Ontario Growth Plan, the Greenbelt Plan, plans for the Oak Ridges Moraine, the Golden Horseshoe Growth Plan, and as a couple of presenters mentioned today, the Niagara Escarpment Plan as well. And they made a number of recommendations relating to farming and actually an expansion of the Greenbelt. So this is something that is motivating me. The Greenbelt Foundation, Madam Chair, advises reports that the current Greenbelt offsets about 71 billion tons of carbon, provides $9 billion in annual economic benefit. I know we've had conversations around this table about putting a value on environmental assets, and provides some $224 million worth of flood protection, which is a big issue as we know, and such. So all of those things taken together have led me to work with them to bring this here. I think we need new energy to focus on the future. We can't live in the past. We've got to move forward. I want to end by referencing the one letter that was submitted, written and submitted with respect to this motion from Rose Johnson and family. Interestingly, their catch site is forthekids.ca. And I thought that was interesting because my other important reason for doing this is the little guy that's going to turn 4 on Sunday, who loves to bake cookies with Grandma. He likes reading nature books. He feeds the birds with Grandpa. He likes to walk on the beach, grow pumpkins in the garden, and take hikes. And I can't imagine a world where we had difficulty breathing, difficulty drinking clean water, and difficulty not growing our own food. And I think we have a sacred responsibility, not just to I'm a girl dad, my 3 girls, and the people I have the privilege of representing, but to the future. And every time I see that curious, mischievous little guy saying, Grandpa, let's go feed the birds or let's go pick the pumpkins, I think of the Greenbelt, and I think of nature, and I think of the kind of world I want to create for our kids and our grandkids. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor McMeekin. Up now is Councillor Kassar, please.
Well, that's tough to follow, huh? Yeah. I think Councillor McMeekin said pretty much everything. I'm very happy to second the motion. I mean, it's appropriate today, I think, that we had the earlier application to have an incursion into the Greenbelt for development, juxtaposed against this to hopefully take steps to be part of the process to expand it, preserve more, as I touched on earlier. The one challenge that we have as generations progress is we all have a baseline of what things are like and what normal is. And over the last few generations, every generation has chipped into land use and expanded land use, taking away from nature and farmland. And so the next generation, that's just normal. A little more is done, that's just normal. So it's really important to have protections to preserve for future generations, that we have everything around us that we need to not only protect ourselves, protect the ecology that supports us and the water table, And it's even more important when legislation and governments of the day put into effect legislation that allows others to chip away at it. So, we're playing offense and defense at the same time for something that benefits everybody. Because whether, you care about the Greenbelt, enjoy it, acknowledge the economic value, the environmental value, it benefits all of us. So we are in this difficult position where we're defending it, and I think we also need to grow it, and we really need to be doing both of those things and hope for the best for all of them. So very happy for the leadership of Councillor McMeekin and Ian Borsek for bringing this motion here, and looking forward to the results. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Kassar. Councillor Alex Wilson, please.
Thank you. Really want to echo the thanks to Councillor McMeekin and everyone in community who's been part of bringing this forward. Just before, I think, the last municipal election, a lot of local groups got together. This was in the wake of the Stop Sprawl campaign, and put out a Made in Hamilton Greenbelt plan that lots of local organizations signed on to, that got a lot of support from community members. And it was for exactly this. If the province was ever opening this up, what should be the areas that we grew the Greenbelt in the Hamilton area? And 3 categories of lands were submitted by organizations and the public as prime contenders for where we should grow the Greenbelt to benefit Hamiltonians, to protect our local area, and these are suggestions from our neighbors. The White Belt lands, the low-hanging fruit, makes sense, but also urban river valleys that throughout the rest of the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the urban river valleys are part of the Greenbelt. I believe the Don River is in Toronto. I believe most of our urban river systems are through Mississauga, like the Credit River, et cetera. But then you get around to Burlington, and that stops happening. And so there's a real opportunity to have the parks, the trails, the bits of the backyards that, regardless of where you are in the city, if you're in Stony Creek and the Red Hills in your backyard, and that's where you live, laugh, play, after work or wherever you are, or if it's me on the Spencer Creek Trail every morning with my coffee getting to the bus, bringing the Greenbelt into our cities through these urban river valleys is exactly the point. These urban river valleys connect the Greenbelt to the Great Lakes, and that protection should follow that connection. The last area that community members, neighbors, environmental organizations in the area suggested was all of our wetlands and water features that have dubious and changing levels of protection under provincial standards. And so whether this is a comprehensive approach to saying, hey, everything should be protected, or whether it's saying, here are the most important things to add, there's a real desire to see more of our wetlands and water features included in the Greenbelt, especially given that we've already lost 60% of the wetlands in the Hamilton area. So just in supporting this motion today, in supporting staff and doing this review, I just also wanted to point out that Hamiltonians have come together to suggest what they think the results of this review could be. Just wanted to give some credence to those and hope that some of these ideas come forward in the staff review as well as to how we can grow that Greenbelt and where are those prime contenders for protection. I'll just speak finally and say, I think the value of protecting a river system like Spencer Creek is that role of connection, bringing that place where the Greenbelt's not just something where food happens over there, it happens in the countryside, and therefore it happens over there, but it speaks to the connectedness of, that biodiversity, those linkages as nature's moving, but also just people getting out there. Like, where are those cycling trails? Where are those walking paths to get people to the Greenbelt from our urban areas? They often are along our waterways. That's where they are today already. And so just expanding that connectivity, I think, really can bring more Hamiltonians into relationship with the Greenbelt, see how the Greenbelt's benefiting them, see where the various economic benefits the Greenbelt offers, but also, it's not something that has to be far away. It's something that can be right in downtown Dundas. It can be right in Ward 4 and Ward 5. It doesn't have to be something that's only in our rural area. So really appreciate this motion and really excited to see what happens next. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing as there are no other speakers, we do already have a written submission that Councillor McMeekin had referenced, so I think I'm going to just lump all of them together and make Elsie Kelsey's life a little easier. So since we do have a mover and seconder, the motion we've already discussed, may I have your vote electronically, please? Vote is up. And just as we're waiting for the vote to come up, which should be now, I think, or not, it's 11-0, so congratulations. Thank you, Councillor McMeekin. Before we go on to notices of motion, just for committee's sake, I do recognize it's 11:49. I would like to try and get through notices of motion plus private and confidential and then end before we get into like the lunchtime. So I'm at committees. If we're cool with continuing on, let's do it. All right, so let's move on to notice of motion. Councillor Francis, you have a review of fortification bylaw. Who is your seconder to suspend the rules?
That is Councillor Pauls, please.
Okay, and could you give us, Yep.
Yeah, Chair, I'm asking to waive the rules because this can't wait. Our residents are already flooding us with calls, confused whether their cameras are even legal, and many calls to inquire about their neighbors in the meantime. And it's just been a flood of calls in the past few days. And after shooting on my own street, many of my neighbors and residents in the surrounding area, they bought cameras, and now suddenly they fear they're breaking the law. This bylaw is from 2010, badly outdated, and every day without clarity wastes staff time and leaves our residents in limbo. So that's my reason. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And so I do need an e-scribe vote to suspend the rules, please. So, sorry, questions? Councillor Kretsch, please.
Sorry, just clarifying, because we have lots of old bylaws that probably need a review. And so we prioritize those bylaws and review. And also one of the options for people when we don't waive the rules is that delegates can come forward. So if they have these concerns and want to express their concerns, we can hear from them when we're making the decision. Waiving the rules eliminates that possibility. My understanding is that, from staff anyways, that there are not a lot of enforcement orders out there for this right now. So people might just be reading the bylaw and feeling apprehensive, but there are not. Are you doing this in reaction to anything specific or just confused?
Well, I think it's very well publicized, Chair, what's happened in the past few days. But regardless of that, this is an issue that I think we've all been struggling with. I know a number of my colleagues that I've spoken to have struggled with this, and I don't know how we even got to this point of allowing it to get this far. So I think it's long past overdue that we deal with it. And I'm hearing the opposite from staff in my conversations with them, including my own office. It's an explosion of requests that we're getting, not just for confused residents, but to request enforcement now, because this has been brought to light in a significant manner, to their neighbors. So, wasting 3 weeks waiting for us to make a decision on this really makes no sense.
Councillor Kretsch, please.
Thanks for answering my question. So this is about a specific situation, which I believe is in Ward 2. And also about requests that are coming in, but not about enforcement orders specifically coming from staff. So people might be asking staff questions about this, and it's an outdated bylaw. I'm not prepared to waive the rules to suspend the ability for people to delegate about this, specifically because you've indicated this is about a known public Ward 2 issue. Ward 2 residents should have an opportunity to delegate about this, and that seems like a reasonable thing to do. So I'm not going to vote in favor of it.
Okay, and Councillor Francis, did you want to respond?
I just want to clarify, yes, there was an incident in Ward 2, but there are subsequent incidents occurring throughout the rest of the city, including my own ward, from other residents. So this is not just a Ward 2 specific incident, albeit that was a big spotlight put on that issue. It has subsequently led to a lot of inquiries now that should be dealt with.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Pauls, please.
Yes, I think this is important. I had a call from a few commercial places saying, is that going to happen to us as well? I thought, no. So I called bylaw, and I was a little bit confused. Bylaw said they didn't deal with this, and it was under the planning. And I thought, really, it's under the planning? So it's a little confusing. So I think we need to know. And if this bylaw was enacted in 2010, it's long overdue. We need to look at it right now. People honestly are saying they're locking their doors. They are scared. So I think this is perfect timing. It is, and you could laugh, Councillor, but it's true. I've never locked my doors. I'm locking my doors now. My son kind of laughs at me, Mom, you should close your door, But I'm saying people are concerned. And when Councillor Francis put this motion, I say, it's good. I call bylaw. I called, and I need to know what's going on. Can somebody have a camera? And I know it's privacy. We know all that, but we need to know. So this is a good motion, and I think we should suspend the rule and do it now and get clarification from staff as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pauls. Councillor Cassar, please. Oh, sorry. I have multiple people online now, so I'll go to Councillor Alex Wilson, Councillor Nan, and then followed by Councillor Kassar, please. Councillor Alex Wilson.
Thank you. So my understanding is this motion, and I'm not going to debate the content of the motion, but this is related to the urgency piece, asks for a staff review. So the current bylaw will still be in place until that staff review comes back. By definition, I don't understand the urgency then, because to get people out of participating in this via delegations, what we're asking for is a review to be done by staff of the bylaw. Even if we all support that, public input on what that review should include is so valuable. If it's about specific questions about what is the enforcement regime right now, if those came into my office, if they come into any office, we'd reach out to MLE, we'd say, hey, are you able to explain the fortification bylaw? What are the standards in place today? And what are the issues? If people disagree with that, if they have questions, if they have appeals, sure, we can handle that as casework in our offices. But I just don't understand the urgency of conducting a review to the extent that these 14 days that it's going to be delayed, or these 21 days in the difference of starting that review, mean that we shouldn't have the public frame that, shouldn't bring their perspectives forward. It's a policy review. It's not an urgent issue.
Thank you, Councillor Alex Wilson. Councillor Nan, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I don't think I have many more points to add other than just appealing to the mover and seconder to consider not moving forward with the waiving of the rules, to let this motion land squarely on the table next planning committee, so that those residents who would love the opportunity to be able to share with us, I don't deny what each of my colleagues are saying, that they're hearing a lot from residents across the city. It'd be really great to be able to hear that so that we can get some context for the policy review that we're requesting. I think system change and policy change work is critical, and it's really important to make sure that our residents' voices are heard on the forum in the public committee setting and not just in media. Thank you. So I will not be supporting waiving of the.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kassar, please.
Yeah, thanks. Just a question to understand the timing of what would happen here. I know that we have given a lot of work to bylaw over this term of council, and I know there's been a long queue of work. We just dealt with a report around a bylaw that took a long time to get done, presumably because of capacity. So just asking for a factual answer, if this were to pass today, when would staff have the capacity to start working on it? And then the obvious question from that is, would 3 weeks make a difference from direction from council, if that is clear, Chair?
Thank you. So I do see Tamara Reed is here representing Dan Smith. However, I do also know that this is squarely in buildings, this bylaw is actually in buildings purview. So may I ask CBO Lawley, what does that look like?
Through the chair, Rob Lally, Director of Building. We've taken a look at the review. We've taken a look at the notice of motion and taken a look at the review calendar. And in order to gather the information, do some public consultation, and work closely with legal, I would anticipate we wouldn't bring this back until Q1.
So I think that Councillor Kassar's question was really just around with the 3 weeks, like pushing it by 3 weeks, what does that look like?
Yeah, is this going to go to the front of the queue and work started right now? If not, then it's kind of a moot point.
Right. So CBO Lawley, did you kind of get that question?
Just to clarify, was the question, would this go to the top of the pile and be worked on immediately? There's already some work that's already taken place on reviewing this bylaw. So that work is ongoing. We would just continue with that work. Waiving the rules and bringing forward this notice of motion, I don't think would really accelerate that plan. That's already moving forward already.
Councillor? Okay, Councillor McMeekin, please.
Yeah, thanks. I hope this is helpful. Something only becomes urgent when somebody has the courage to flag it as being urgent. And I want to thank the councillor for at least kicking off that process. There are two ways to approach it. One would be to have the staff go do some work and then bring it back. The other would be to engage the citizenry in a potential discussion, and if it is as urgent as the councillor and others around this table feel it to be, we would probably get some helpful insight there. So I want to compliment the councillor for raising it, but I concur that there is maybe a better process that would be decidedly useful to hear from people about their sense of urgency and the kinds of concerns from legal, police, citizens, what have you. I'm very concerned about the kind of obnoxious literature that gets delivered into homes as well. I don't know if you get complaints.
I think that's a different issue.
Yeah, well, related to cameras, because you can't, in the absence of cameras, identify who that is. And I happen to think that some of the literature that comes into mailboxes is hate literature. But that's a personal thing. I just want to flag. So
Thank you.
in that context, I think.
So just a reminder that we are trying to talk about suspension of the rules currently. So Councillor Maureen Wilson, please.
Thank you, Chair. I admit I'm a tad confused. And I think my challenge is, I believe from a governance perspective right now, I'm only able to ask questions pertaining to the waiving and the rationale. However, in some of the answers to some of my colleagues' good questions and comments, I've heard a couple of things that I need to hear more of. So I've heard, I think, from Chief Building Officer Lally that staff have already initiated, I think, a review of this bylaw. I've heard from staff that there will be a public consultation component to this. I don't know what that looks like, and I don't know the order in which that consultation is to be done, meaning we've been hearing some concerns that in accelerating this, we're losing the opportunity for public consultation. However, I've also heard that it started already and there is going to be public consultation. So if I can ask, Chair, because it has been raised, is it the thought of staff that the purpose of the consultation is a responsive one post a review? Or is the consultation to be one of defining the challenge, the opportunity, whether the bylaw exists in an age where this is everywhere all the time and doesn't seem to have any rules on the space in which it's applied and also maybe used by officials? It's really, I'm just trying to understand.
Okay, so I will perhaps ask CBO Lally just to give us where is this at this time? But then again, I will have to make sure that we're trying to be very succinct to the suspension of the rules. But because this has already been brought up, I think that it's in order to ask at least that question about where is this in the queue and where are we at in terms of like the steps in place. So CBO Lally, please.
Through the chair, Rob Lally, Director of Building. This was first raised in late November 2023 that this bylaw should be reviewed. It's a number of years old. We've already talked about all the points with everyone having a household, Main Street, Ring doorbell, camera type thing. It would be a good time for us to look at the bylaw. Then we had the cyber incident in 2024 that all got shelved through 2024. And it just happened that it was re-raised approximately 2 weeks ago to say, hey, you know what, we're getting back on track now. Let's have a look at this bylaw and go forward to review it. And there was going to be some consultation. Like I said, we were going to be speaking with legal. We wanted to speak with police. We've also made some in-house, we have an in-house policy on how we administer this bylaw. So we'd be looking to incorporate that information into the amended bylaw. As far as when it's going to take place, without direction from council, we were just going to kindly, work through it. We didn't know what was going to be happening with the incident that we're dealing with in Ward 2, the investigation in Ward 2. So we would just be working through it in 2025. If it's committee's direction that it needs to be accelerated, then we'll be looking for direction from committee.
Does that help answer your question, Councillor Wilson?
It does, in the sense that I didn't appreciate full disclosure that direction was already given. Oh, no, I didn't understand that correctly.
Sorry, there was no direction given from committee or council to look at the bylaw. It was something that we do upon ourselves. We have this bylaw. It seems to be antiquated. We know the number of calls we get. We know sometimes we may have challenges with enforcement. So in doing that, we take a look at the bylaw to ensure it's enforceable the way it's written.
Okay, thank you. So it was deemed to be in need of a review. It's on your docket to do so. That process has started, and included in that process is engagement, is what I've heard.
Through the chair, at the appropriate time, it would include engagement.
Okay, so the only question then is, A, not discontinuing that, but the speed and the priority in which this is done. Okay, thank you for that clarity.
Thank you. Before I go to second-time speakers, I will ask if there's any first-time additional speakers that might want to speak to this. Councillor Francis, please.
Thank you, and I appreciate the discussion around here, and I totally appreciate where everyone's coming from, but with respect, the urgency is real. Residents are already acting under this bylaw today, calling for enforcement. They're unsure if they're breaking the law or not. They're worried that they're being treated like a criminal for just simply protecting their families, aside from this one CH interview that was well publicized. But the confusion is happening now, not months from now. And every day we wait, it's staff time wasted, chasing complaints. Residents lose trust. The city of Hamilton is not keeping up with reality. And that's why we can't put it off. Doing this now, it speeds the process up by 3 weeks, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we have no more speakers. At this time, it is about the suspension of the rules. So we do have a mover and a seconder. May I please have your vote electronically on the suspension of the rules, please? Vote is up. And that vote is defeated, 6-4. Wait, what? 2/3 majority. That's right, 2/3 majority is to, okay. 2/3 majority, which would have been 7-3 then, if that was a pass, right? Okay. All right, so this stays as a notice of motion. It'll come back on. You need 2/3. You would have to have one more vote to actually make it 2/3. Well, we have already voted, so this stays as a notice of motion. It'll come on to next planning committees as a full motion. I hope that we can all have good, fulsome discussion at that next planning committee. So at this time, we will move forward with private and confidential. Committee, we would like to move into closed session. Yes? Yes, we are? Yes. Okay. At this time, may I please have a mover and a seconder to move into closed session for items 12.1 pursuant to section 9.3 subsections E, F, and K of the city's procedural bylaw 21-021 as amended, and section 2392 subsections E, F, and K of the Ontario Municipal Act 2001 as amended, as the subject matter pertains to litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, and a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. Please indicate your electronic vote now to go into, I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Alex Wilson, Councillor Kassar, and now it's an electronic vote, please. And the vote is up. Vote carries 9-0. Thank you. Members of the public, this meeting will continue following the closed session portion of the meeting. When you see members of committee rejoining the meeting, the committee will wait up to 5 minutes upon reconvening in open session before proceeding with the meeting to provide members of the public and media time to return. Thank you. Thank you. We are now back in open session. So this is speaking to 12.1 LS 25016, proceeding before the Ontario Land Tribunal for lands located at 574 Northcliffe Avenue, pursuant to the Niagara Escarpment Planning and Development Act for Niagara Escarpment Plan Amendment, PW 21820, and Development Permit Application WP 2021-2022-487. May I please have a mover and a seconder to approve, 1, that the directions provided to staff in closed session respecting Report LS 25016 be approved. 2, that closed session recommendation 1 of the confidential report LS 25016 be approved and released to the public following approval by council. And 3, that the balance of the report LS 25016 remain confidential. Councillor Alex Wilson and Councillor Kassar. I need your vote electronically, please. Okay, vote is up. And that vote carries 10-0. Seeing as there is no further business, we are adjourned at 12:23 p.m. Thank you very much.